Okay, let's unpack this. Today we are doing a deep dive into the neural architecture of resilience, but
Yeah.
we're tailoring this specifically for you, the high-performing learner. Our sources are, well, they're a stack of cutting-edge neuroscience. We've got research on mindfulness, recovery, brain networks, and the whole mission here is to give you the ultimate shortcut. Because the data is really clear on this. Peak performance isn't just about working harder. It's not about pushing through. It's about mastering the science of recovery and, how your brain actually processes reward and failure.
And that last part, mastering recovery, that's what we almost always skip. I mean, to truly optimize, you have to look beneath the surface. Your brain is in this constant balancing act between internal stability, homeostasis, and every single external demand you place on it. If you ignore that deep neural architecture, the parts responsible for self-awareness and rest, well, those systems start to become dysfunctional. And then all your hard work, all your efforts to gain knowledge or boost your output, they're dramatically compromised.
And when we talk about that deep architecture, I think we have to start with the big one, the network that runs your inner world, the default mode network. The DMN researchers used to sort of dismiss this. They called it the resting state. But our sources are really clear. It is anything but quiet.
Oh, not at all. It's that constant internal
The
monologue.
chatter.
Yeah, the narrative of you. It's really the architecture of self-reflection. The DMN handles all the internal self-referential and emotional processes. It does the critical work, accessing memory, evaluating your own thoughts, and projecting future scenarios.
What are you going to say at that meeting next week or what happened last year?
Exactly. And while self-reflection is obviously essential, we all know that inner monologue can just spiral out of control.
It becomes rumination.
It becomes rumination. Yeah. The problem starts when you get hyperconnectivity between the DMN regions, like the posterior cingulate cortex, your self-reference hub, and the limbic regions, the emotional centers. That strong, relentless connection is the neural engine that drives the rumination, the self-criticism, all those recurrent negative loops.
If you've ever tried to fall asleep while obsessing over, like, an awkward email you sent 3 months ago, that's your DMN stuck on repeat.
That's it exactly. And that loop doesn't just feel bad, it's fundamentally exhausting.
Right. But there's a really surprising insight in the data about DMN activity and predicting actual mental fatigue, isn't there? It kind of goes against what you'd assume.
It does, and this is a key takeaway for anyone who needs sustained attention. One study measured spontaneous DMN activity. Technically, it's the amplitude of low-frequency fluctuation, but they measured it before subjects even started a 20-minute vigilance task.
Okay, so you'd assume, right, that more resting DMN activity means you're already kind of tired. More chatter equals less focus later on.
That's the intuitive leap. But counterintuitively, they found the exact opposite. The individuals who had higher resting DMN activity in those core nodes, like the medial prefrontal cortex, they actually showed more stable reaction times during the task.
Wait, hold on. Higher internal chatter predicted more stability. That feels backward.
I know it's confusing at first. It suggests that the spontaneous DMN activity, when you measure it in the resting brain, is acting as an objective marker of mental fatigue that has already accumulated. Think of it like a car engine. If you've been running on high-stress fuel, the DMN is already revving a little higher before the new task even starts.
Ah, okay, so it's not causing the fatigue. It's a symptom of it. The brain is telling you, hey, I'm already tired down here.
Precisely. Your resting state predicts your capacity to stay focused. And this brings us right to that active tension we mentioned. The DMN is typically anti-correlated with the networks we need for tasks.
The executive control network.
Exactly. To solve a complex problem or to focus, you have to actively deactivate the DMN. You have to stop thinking about yourself and what you had for dinner and focus on the external task. But chronic stress. It fundamentally compromises that switching mechanism. And when the DMN can't be shut down efficiently, that's when you get the concentration problems and the attention lapses.
So if the DMN is managing our internal world, what about the systems that handle, the immediate raw emotion?
Okay, so for that, we need to bring in the amygdala and the insula.
The brain's alarm system.
That's the one. The amygdala is the primary emotional alarm. It processes fear, anger, pleasure, and it regulates the body's immediate stress response, the HPA axis, the whole brain-body chain reaction. And what we see is that when that alarm is blaring, there's often a corresponding decrease in DMN activity.
The self-reflection shuts down because your brain is just focused on immediate survival.
Exactly. It's
Yeah.
prioritizing.
Okay, so here's where it gets really interesting. Knowing all this intricate wiring, these competing systems, how do we deliberately change it? How do we favor calm, reasoned responses over just panic, or rumination?
Well, the leverage we have, even with short-term interventions, is frankly amazing. Our sources review these huge systematic studies on mindfulness-based stress reduction, or MBSR, and they show that an 8-week program can induce functional and even structural changes in the brain, the same kind of changes you see in, long-term traditional meditators.
8 weeks. That's incredible efficiency. What are the specific changes that give us that calmer brain?
Well, you see increases both structurally and functionally across the board. In the prefrontal cortex, your rational decision maker, the cingulate, the insula, the hippocampus. But the critical win, the real win for emotional regulation, is what happens in the amygdala. It showed decreased functional activity overall. But even more importantly, it showed improved functional connectivity with the prefrontal cortex.
You're building a better bridge between the alarm and the regulator.
You are. That enhanced communication pathway is the neural basis for calmer responses. You still register the alarm, but your rational brain can step in and regulate the panic before it takes over.
And that enhanced awareness seems tied directly to this idea of interoception, right? Which the insula is in charge of.
That's right. Interoception is basically your body's internal GPS. It's how you register your internal state, your heart rate, your breathing, muscle tension. Mindfulness practices, what they do is promote interoceptive recovery. So instead of focusing on the analytical story, your prefrontal cortex is spinning about how stressed you are.
You're shifting away from the story of the stress and toward the actual sensation of it.
Precisely. By engaging the insula and other regions to just process the somatic experience, the tightness in your chest, the shallow breathing, without judging it, you restore neural balance. And this promotes what's called interpretive flexibility.
Which means what, in simple terms?
It means you regain the ability to broaden your focus and see beyond the immediate stressor. You're teaching the brain to just observe the signal, not amplify it into a catastrophe.
Okay, let's shift gears a little. Let's move from the stress response to the reward system, because motivation and effort are so often sabotaged by this deep psychological thing. The hedonic treadmill, hedonic adaptation.
It's the simple fact that our brain constantly resets its baseline for pleasure.
Our sources even talk about relationship complacency from this.
It applies to everything. Think
Yeah.
about buying a new phone. You get this huge dopamine spike initially, but within a few weeks, it's just your phone. It's background noise. The brain adapts, and you need a new, bigger stimulus to get that same thrill.
And this gets really dangerous when things artificially jack up that baseline.
Absolutely. The sources connect this specifically to substances like alcohol, which cause these massive artificial dopamine spikes. That raises your overall hedonic point, the level of stimulation you need to feel happy. And if that point is way up here, your previously rewarding hobbies, a walk outside, reading a book, suddenly don't produce enough dopamine to even register.
So you're stuck chasing a bigger and bigger reward just to feel normal. Can something like meditation help regulate that constant chase?
It can, and it's through the mechanics of dopamine signaling. Your brain uses two main kinds of dopamine signals. First, you have phasic bursts. Those are the sharp, immediate spikes, the aha moment, the thrill of novelty. And second, you have persistent tonic levels, which are the stable background levels that kind of set the mood for all your brain activity.
So it's the difference between a lightning strike and just the ambient light in the room.
That's a perfect analogy. And research shows that more meditation experience is associated with less learning from negative feedback. Your avoidance behavior actually decreases.
Less avoidance, less panic. That sounds like a fundamental rewiring of how you see risk and reward.
It is. The theory is that this shift is caused by an increase in those persistent tonic dopamine levels. Basically, higher background dopamine gently shifts the brain's focus toward exploitation.
Exploitation?
Meaning, sticking with known, reliable rewards rather than excessive exploration chasing every new shiny object or reacting to every negative signal. It stabilizes the whole system.
And we can see this play out in the real world, right? In clinical settings.
We can. The sources point to studies on chronic pain patients on opioid therapy. For them, dispositional mindfulness was associated with a measurable increase in hedonic capacity.
So they had a greater responsiveness to natural, everyday rewards.
Exactly. Even while dealing with severe chronic pain, mindfulness literally helped them regain their capacity to feel joy from life's small pleasures.
That's profound.
It is. And that enhanced capacity basically explained the link between their mindfulness and how much their pain interfered with their life. It gives you back control over your internal state of pleasure.
That ability to manage mental resources seems to be the key, which brings us to the metabolic side of decision-making. We know decision fatigue is a real thing, linked to glucose depletion and dopamine drops.
It's purely an energy management problem. Every single decision you make, no matter how small, it consumes glucose and dopamine. And as those reserves get lower and lower throughout the day, your brain just defaults to easier, more impulsive choices to conserve what little energy it has left.
So the practical takeaway is to protect that energy for what really matters.
Yes. A very practical step is just to be preventative. Set your top 3 critical decisions or tasks for the morning and do them first. By front-loading the most important cognitive work, you're actively saving the glucose and dopamine you need for high-quality thinking later in the day. So now let's widen the aperture a bit to the holistic resilience toolkit. We need to move beyond just mental practices to the physical and environmental things that support homeostasis.
Right, because we know that active coping, confronting stressors, is always more adaptive than just avoiding them. And the sources really highlight cognitive reappraisal as a powerful tool here.
Which is really just reframing an event to change its emotional impact. You're not denying reality, you're just changing the story you tell about it.
You're stuck in traffic.
Right. Instead of catastrophizing, you reframe it. Okay, this is now dedicated time for me to listen to that deep dive I downloaded. It's a simple shift, but studies confirm it's linked to significantly better psychological health.
That's the psychological lever. Is there a physical way to manage the burden of worry?
There is, and it's something called emotional offloading. Verbalizing, or even more effectively, writing down your worries acts as a functional offload from the prefrontal cortex.
Like hitting save on a huge file so your computer can run faster.
That's a great way to put it. Research with anxious students showed that those who wrote about their feelings before a test used fewer prefrontal resources during the test. They'd conserved their cognitive energy by just getting it out.
This connects so well to the idea of embodied cognition that our abstract thinking is physically rooted. Our sources mention how grid cells in our brain, the ones that map physical space, also map our abstract ideas.
The foundation for navigating space is also the foundation for navigating thought, which is why you can't treat the mind as separate from the body. And there's this fascinating paradox in the data about movement. An excessive focus on stillness, trying to clamp down on all movement, can actually increase cognitive load and hurt your problem solving.
So that hypervigilant stillness is actually taxing, not restful.
It can be. The mind wants to move. And conversely, low intensity, moderate movement standing, walking while you think, light exercise, it consistently improves cognitive functions like attention, memory, and problem solving. A mind on the move is a mind that works better. And finally, we have to look at the deepest form of recovery, the deep, clean cycle of sleep and heat. The brain has its own plumbing system, the lymphatic system, which flushes out metabolic waste. And crucially, this system is most active during deep non-REM sleep. The data is stark. One night of total sleep deprivation significantly impairs this cleaning process.
So sleep is literally neurological maintenance. The system starts backing up without it. How does something like sauna supercharge this process?
Sauna turbocharges the lymphatic system through 2 really powerful mechanisms. The first is cardiovascular mimicry. The heat raises your heart rate and drives blood flow to the brain, basically imitating moderate exercise. More blood flow means more cleaning power.
And the second mechanism, the mental part.
The second is deep relaxation. The sustained heat forces your nervous system to shift from sympathetic, that fight or flight mode, to parasympathetic, the rest and digest mode. In that state of profound physical surrender, the brain's faucets open wide, letting the system flush out proteins like amyloid beta and tau, which are linked to cognitive decline.
It's a full system reset.
It really is.
So what does this all mean? When you put it all together, the sources are giving us this incredibly clear guide to building resilience from the neuron up. It's a toolkit for agency.
Resilience is not a single trait you're born with. It's an integrated path you build through informed choices. You start with root causes, healing metabolic dysfunction with diet, and you continue by intentionally training your neural networks with mindfulness, with reappraisal, with restorative heat.
And bringing this back to you, the learner. The ultimate goal here is agency. It's the power to orchestrate your own life through these choices. The sources mention that regaining control over your mind, especially after a serious illness, is like recovering an invaluable possession. So here's a final thought for you to chew on, something to make these choices feel more meaningful right now. Consider incorporating negative visualization into your routine. Just for a moment today, imagine the temporary loss of your most valued capacity, your health, your mental clarity, your agency. And then notice how much more profound your gratitude and motivation become for the positive steps you are taking today.